Okay, here with Blender 2.18, we're just going to cover the basics of animation. So, as always, I seem to be deleting this default cube. I'm going to add 3 planes and just scale them up and reposition them so they can form a kind of room. Rotate X 90 degrees, grab Y 5, scale 5, that'll do. Add a plane, rotate Y 90 degrees, grab X5, grab X5, minus scale 5. Alright, that's our room. Add UV sphere will do, scale it down so it looks like a ball, grab it and just drop it there. Alright, so we have our ball. So usually with this keyframing stuff, it's really just sort of start with your base frame down here. So I've just enabled the timeline so it's a little clearer so you can see what I'm doing. And all I'm going to do is lock in location for this example. Thankfully with Blender, basically you could animate everything. So yeah, I'll get something later. Alright, so I'm going to lock into the side view. I might have to use wireframe on this one so I can see what's going on. And now I want to look in that way. So I know at around, say, frame 50, I want the ball to bounce probably every 30 frames, let's say. So yeah, I'm going to grab this and I'm actually going to pull out this side panel because all I really want to do, yep, I'm going to zoom in, so I've got the baseline it's going to bounce off, and then this here. So I'm just going to adjust it so it basically hits. And by no long shot this is going to be a good animation, so I'm just going to insert keyframes. So here we can see the ball goes down. But however, we also want some lateral motion. So looking from the side here, just going to grab it and just purely in the Y direction and lock in that keyframe, that location. So here we can see it's swished down and then we've got to bounce it around the room. So there's actually a couple of ways to animate this, and I'm just thinking maybe I should have done the bounces to the ground later on. So I'll just wind things back. What I really want to do is basically off this, get it to bounce off the back wall. So I'm going to look from above, grab this, slide it into that back corner. Insert a keyframe for that location. Grab it, say, a couple of frames later and reposition it into that corner. And then basically get it to head on out of the scene. So it's swish, doosh. That's a bit quick, but anyhow, we'll see how we go. And then it's sort of about here, will disappear off out of the camera's view. So just grab that and just slide it down there. Lock in the location. So all I've really managed to do here is basically get it to float across the screen. There's no ball bouncing going on. But what we're actually going to be doing, and I'm just going to grab this in the Z direction, slide it down until it touches the ground. So for that I'm going to need to actually be able to see things. Hopefully you can see all my key presses as they're happening. So grabbing the Z direction until it just touches there, that'll do. And since the camera's up here, it won't see what's going on. Alright, sorry for that bit of a break. I had to go off and sort something out. So as we can see here from the animation, it comes in, boing, blah, blah, and it's got to come down again. I don't like that point, so I might actually move it. So it bounces, say frame 60, which means that because it's got that sort of consistent repetition, we should grab that, make sure that that also bounces as well. Because we know, thanks to physics, that the bounce is pretty consistent time-wise. So here we go, boing, doing, doing. That's roughly right, but it's a bit wishy-washy. It's a bit fluid. So what do we do? And I probably should actually move that above location so it's a little closer to everything that's going on as well. So what we'll do is we'll just grab that and slide it in there. So here we have a bit of a path, doing, 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 and out. Alright, so now we need to make the animation come alive a little bit because it's actually fairly flat. So we're going to use the graph editor in this case to, oh not that one down there, one where we can actually see. So back to the timeline and up here is the graph editor. That way we can see what's going on. Alright, and you can see the blue is our Z direction, and it's not the greatest of lines because we really want that curvature bounce happening, and preferably in each case it to be a little bit lower. So imagine this like the side animation of a ball bouncing. We kind of want that to happen that way. So I'm just going to switch this over with the letter V to a vector one, and I'm going to then grab this point and adjust the 2 points so we get a bit of a curve. This point, I actually don't want this here. I'm going to delete that keyframe. I'm going to keep that one there, and I'm going to adjust this one to again to a vector. And I could actually reasonably, I can either scale it up, so I get a fairly smooth curve, and then guess the midpoint. Or conversely, I can cheat. Grab that one and that one, but nope. I want that one. I want to get this point and that point up to the same height. So I'm just going to grab this and put it about there, and then grab this and say put it about on the halfway line. That's too high, so just grab that and pull it back down. Yep, so here, that's the peak of that curve. This one's again still too high, so oops. Just that point, I'm going to drop that to the 3 line. So here, we've got a fairly consistent curve going on, and that's actually quite good. This one I'm going to bring to here, and this one I might just adjust so it's visually a little bit lower. So here you can see the slow decay of that curve as it bounces through the room. Down the bottom here, where it hits the bottom, where it touches the ground, or looks like it touches the ground, I've changed that into a vector line so you've got that snappy little bounce to it. So if we go back to our 3D view, just running the timeline again, that just that there, that looks pretty good now. Now the snaps off the walls, they're another case entirely, but we can work with that, and it's the same sort of idea. So we're looking at this point here. Really, I want that to be snappy, and the rest of the lines are actually irrelevant. So I might even just delete that keyframe. I'll keep that there because it draws this out nicely. Vectorize that vector so that I can get a decent sort of curve happening. And I'm just using my eyeball here just to sort of work out where it is, and I probably don't actually need that one. So that's looking pretty nice. And then this one sort of swishes. Now this down here would be the maximum point where on the X that it hits that wall. So if we look from above, right, what's happening is the ball comes along, bounce, hits that wall, bounces off, hits that wall, and then comes back, and you can sort of swishes back a bit with it, so it's a flatness on this curve. So all that red line is representing is how much on the X it is. So if we actually pull it up so we can just have a look at both together. So we'll get the graph editor here, get the other stuff out of the way. So all I'm really looking at is this line here. And if I follow that, it comes in. That's my first point of contact where it supposedly hits the ground. Don't need that. So I'm going to get rid of that one. Then here, hits that wall. That's happening in the Y direction, this one, the green. So don't need that. So I'm going to get rid of that. So that just leaves this point. This point should be where it hits the wall here. It sort of swishes, but we'll work on that. And then we have this here. Again, this is an irrelevant point because it's hitting the ground. And you know, the reason I chose to do this animation with you guys is because it shows you the complexity of dealing with the bouncingness of a ball. And I'm okay, I'll just leave that as it is and see how it goes. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, you got a pretty straight line. So I'll just go back to, this is just my default view, so I'm just going to shuffle this back where it was. Change this to the properties view so I can actually render this out as a piece of video. Now I don't know how this will look through the screen, and lo and behold, we can't see anything. So selecting the camera, getting to where it's going to hit those walls, so it's about there as its highest point. So I'm just going to grab that, move it straight up, and we'll see how it goes. So the ball comes in, bounce, 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 and out again. That looks pretty good. Now the shot's actually over probably frame 120, so we don't need the full 250, so I'm going to cut that down. And we have a piece of animation. We don't have to waste extra rendering time doing all this extra stuff. So it's at full size. Now because this is only a demo test piece, I'm going to render it probably, 15% will do, at a small size so that it's quick. I can render it as PNGs or as video file. I'll throw it into a AVI RAW, leave it all run as a thing. I haven't bothered doing the colours, so I'll just do black and white. And we'll add materials later in just a sec. We'll just render this out to see how it goes. So up the top, render animation, Control F12, I'll have to remember that. And here, lo and behold, whoops, God knows what's happening. There it is. There's my super exciting animation. And there's virtually nothing to it. So that's been done. The next one I'm going to try an FMPEG video, but I'm going to actually put it in color and make it an MPEG-4. So different sort of styles, formats, and yeah, if you're in my class, you'll know what I'm talking about when we get to that sort of stuff. So colors, let's get into some materials going on. The default material for this object. So change the base color to, let's go green, it's there. Make sure it's a rendered view so we can see what's going on. And put both of those into the green material. And then I'm going to have some fun with the ball. So, going to add a new material. And this is material 001. Ball color caps lock. Alright. So, first up, we're going to start with the base color. Let's start with the blue. And I'm actually going to animate all this, so we'll lock it into here and we'll just insert that as a keyframe. So I've just hovered over the base color and gone I. Frame 60 is where it first bounces, so I'm going to pick a different color. Let's go red and keyframe that in. So here you can see it rainbow shifts. Then we get back to frame 120 and we'll move it over to the yellow side of things. So that's just a simple bit of colour mucking around and that sort of stuff just to see what it can do. And then if I go Control F12 for the second time, but this time I think I'll go back and give it a different name. So here it's being dumped in my temp directory. I'm going to give it Bob, because Bob is a name. Control F12, it's going to create Bob, and as you can see here, it comes in and it's changing colour as it bounces. Doing, 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 and we are done. So really what we're looking at in this set of animation stuff is how to set keyframes, when you're in the 3D view or in any of the properties that you can adjust for an object. Alt-I, which I didn't mention, actually removes keyframes. So if I go Alt-I, delete keyframe, that can get quite useful. So I'm just going to grab this and slide it off a bit and reset that keyframe. So and that's basically that. You can also, I think you might be able to do it on the eye, and you can also just click, drag, slide points around, that sort of stuff. But the main thing I wanted to show you was just getting your head around the graph view and how the graph lines move. Now this looks really, really complicated, but basically what it's done is these three lines, and if I can, I'll hide the rest. Yeah, I'll hide those lines. So those three lines I've just hidden are the bounce. These lines are the color shifts. So what it's doing is it's recording the red, the green and the blue values along with the alpha channel for this thing. So if I wanted to, and these adjust between 0 and 1, that's sort of the limit of them, I can actually adjust how these go. So if I change that to a vector, I'm going to just grab this point and just ping it right in so that it'll stay blue for most of it. and then it'll flick over to something else. And I'll select that one. Is that green or blue? Oh, it's green. All right, so can I get blue? Yes, blue. Vectorize that one, and then just grab that little point there and swing that up. So what I'm trying to do here is keep it blue for most of that animation cycle, and then snap to red. Another way of doing that is actually to select the point here, and can I insert a keyframe? Yes, I can. All right, so if we go to just one frame before, 199, insert keyframe, only selected channel. So what we can do here is actually something a little trickier. If I just, no, I don't want that one, I want that point, grab that, slide that all down. And so here, what I've done is I've got an almost instant transition where it should snap to green. So we'll see how that looks, because this is the first time I've tried this sort of stuff. So here's our animation, and I'm just going to jump here. So it's blue, 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 blue. And then as we get towards that bounce point, it's a quick transition to red. Sticks with red for a while. And then right at the very end, it should snap to yellow. Because yellow plus red, green plus red in the RGB color spectrum becomes yellow. So yeah, this is just, again, pretty simple example of bouncing balls, but it's getting used to playing with the graph editor. And in later videos, I'll talk about the dope sheet as well. But the critical thing is to get your head around the graph editor and how those transitions can happen, because everything in the computer is stored as a number value. So if you look at the color wheel for this material, so I'll just go to this is a set of 4 numbers, and you can see those here, and you can control and manipulate those numbers as you choose. So a color is a set of 4 numbers. All this stuff is numbers, usually between 0 and 1 for most of the material properties, but there are some that go higher. And that's just sort of a matter of learning what they are. All right, I'm done, so that's it. Okay, this is an animation that I did a little while back when doing the bouncing ball animation with my class, and really want to focus in on a couple of different things. So if I just scrub the playhead for the moment, you can see the ball come in, and it's got a nice little bounce to it, and it looks pretty good from this angle. But there are 2 angles I really want to focus on to give a clear perspective of what's actually happening. But also to enable and enhance that view of it, let's flip over to the graph editor. And the first thing I want to focus on is the Z-axis. So here, looking from side on, I should be able to see it come in, bounce, bounce, bounce. And each time it bounces, it reduces in height a little bit. And you can see that with the timing that I've built into the bounces. Ideally, with something like a bouncing ball, you want to set up your spacing so that it's got an even rhythm when it strikes the ground. The height of the bounce, depending on how soft or hard that object is, you really want it to reduce in height a little bit. And then finally, I want to focus on the X and Y location. So the X is in red, the Y is in green. And here I've focused on making sure that the slopes of the lines are consistent. And the way this can be seen here is I flick to the above view. Basically, when you look at it, you can almost not see that bounce happening. I zoom out a little bit. Even better, just directly from above on the Z-axis and switch to, straight isometric or orthographic view. It just looks like it's flowing along. It doesn't actually look like anything. You can't see the bounce in this sort of sense. If I switch to perspective view, I'll be able to see a little bit of a bounce, but it's still got that consistent flow of motion in the XY direction, and that's what you've sort of got to focus in to get this happening. All right, and that's enough of that.